but you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
Welcome back to Steam and See It All. This is episode 10, The Patriot. Oh, it sucked. I'm Hans.
You sound like you're starting to feel it.
I am starting to feel it. Who are you both?
I'm Aaron.
I'm Zach.
Perfect. Yeah, so this one, I don't know.
It wore you down?
I'm
right
starts
there off with a humdinger quote from Seagal, which really just, it hurt me. It pained me deeply. But then the whole rest of the movie is like, the theme of this movie is very, I don't want to say it's not well, I guess it's kind of relevant. It's
relevant.
It is very, I guess it is relevant. I don't know. It's like,
it's probably the most relevant movie yet.
Yeah, it's something that could actually happen, and it's frustrating because it's Seagal who's saving the day here, but Seagal today is best friends with Vladimir Putin, so...
Yeah.
Okay, but see, this isn't even the first time this has happened. This, spoiler alert, has happened, will happen again, happens here right now, that very often I find myself, at least, and it sounds like you're in a similar situation, I find myself feeling like I agree with the cause. Like, Seagal is definitely in, like, the politics of the real world and the politics of his movie. Like, more of the good guy, I'm, like, more agreeing with him, but just it's one of those things, like, heartbreaking the worst guy makes a good point.
Yeah, but you have to clarify, though. When you say the politics of the real world, you mean specifically his views on environmentalism.
Well, I mean, his views on environmentalism, he's very clearly trying to, like, save the planet, but just through a very Seagal way, which doesn't work here. Like, this kind of way that biochemical weapons by the United States government could be taken over and used by bad actors, and, like, hey, that's pretty messed up. Spoiler alert for the... So... Yeah, I've already seen the next movie, Exit Wounds. Mm-hmm. There's even, weirdly enough, politics in there that position him as a person I could agree with, but again, through like a very Seagal way. So no, I do not mean Seagal's politics in the real world, where he allies himself with dangerous dictators of other countries.
No.
I mean, like, the real world politics that he infuses. He's not writing the scripts on these. We keep, like, attributing this very much off war theory, like, to Seagal himself. But the movies that characters he plays... often the politics that go into them.
Well, if you look at
like,
the posters for these movies, his head covers up 80% of the screen. Well,
yes. But I keep having this issue where I'm just like, damn it, I kind of like agree with him, but he's still doing it in a gross, slimy way.
Well, yeah.
So
this isn't the only time it happens.
He's a doctor in this one. Of course, he has a CIA background, but we don't.
He's
find
not
that
just
out
a
until...
doctor. He is the.
He is.
Premier...
I'm sorry. He is the best. I think the line was the best damn immunologist in the country.
when
because
they
of
say,
course he has to be the best, and he still has a CIA background. We don't find that out until later, but he does.
Not just that, but when they say, well, why don't you call the second guy? They say there is no second guy.
Okay, no, I want to talk about that line when we get there because it broke me for a second.
it broke me. Okay, so
he's a doctor in this one.
Immunologist.
He is the best damn immunologist in the country. And the best damn immunologist in the country is driving his daughter to school, and his daughter is like doing her homework in the truck because she was up late doing something else the night before and didn't do her homework, whatever. And she like messes up as he's driving because you can't like write in the car. And he looks over at her and says, just keep one thing in mind. When you get it wrong, that's the part where you take after your mother. When you get it right, you get it from me.
Which
and
was
it's just
like...
It's just the slimiest. And by the way, his wife, her mother, dead in this one.
Hey, remember your
She's
dead
not
mom?
there.
Everything you do wrong reminds me of her.
Yeah, everything you do wrong reminds me of your dead mother. Like
even just being reminded she exists, like, brings his daughter to tears.
Yeah, and it's just like the slimiest, grossest, most disgusting line delivered by the slimiest, grossest, most disgusting human. And it really rubbed me wrong, and I couldn't enjoy even the mid to high parts of the rest of this movie because the entire time I'm thinking back to when he told his daughter that every time she does something wrong, it reminds him of his dead wife.
So there's something I want to say about this movie that just hangs over the whole film. I think this movie is terribly written. just
Wow, spicy hot
No,
take.
like-
the direct-to-video Steven Seagal movie with what turns out to be potentially just pseudonymed, maybe David Ayer, but pseudonymous writer is terribly written.
like it's incredible to me how badly written this whole thing is. Of course, it would be distracting, but I was actually surprised at how distracted I was at how bad the writing is.
You would think this far in, you would think we're kind of used to like the rating of a Seagal movie, and like
Yeah.
you're not. It's like you adjust your expectations.
Yeah.
Where if you go and expecting a good movie, ooh, it's way below that. But you kind of have your expectations adjusted to
Yeah.
how good a Seagal movie should be, and then this one is just like fails to meet that bar.
Yeah, like, okay, like off the mic, I've been talking about how I've
Off the mic.
not been watching other movies right now. I just don't have like time in my life right now to be watching other movies. So like my bar is firmly set at Steven Seagal movies right now.
That you have watched 10 movies this year,
Yeah.
and those 10 movies have been all starring,
Yes. All starring Steven Seagal.
likely produced by Steven Seagal.
Yeah. And so my bar is
Such
like
a sad
firmly at
thought.
Steven Seagal level. And this movie hurt. Just, I was not expecting just like fundamental film technique to be this bad in this movie.
So this is jumping ahead. We should let Hans finish the recap.
Yeah,
but it's
finish
very
it.
weird because something I ended up noticing is that other technical elements were weirdly good.
Okay, let's
The
talk
writing
about
was
that
worse
eventually.
than I expected, but a lot of the other components, the cinematography, the direction, better than I had my bar set for. So that's a little tease, but go ahead and finish the recap, Hans.
So there's this guy, Floyd, who is like, again, I can't. I'm lost for words. My brain's not working right now. I'm not a very elegant speaker in the first place, as I'm sure you know. But there's this leader of a bunch of rogue rednecks and Republicans who is
Sovereign
trying to tell-
citizens.
Let's call it what it is. He's convinced them
They're
that
patriots, Hans.
yeah, patriots. Yeah. So this is another movie where the title leads you to think that Steven Seagal is the patriot, but actually the patriot in this one is the bad guy. Anyway, so we start off the movie. We meet him. He's
Freedom
under
must be bought
siege.
with the blood of patriots.
Yeah, he's under siege by
That's ooh,
Yeah, right?
Ooh,
In some real dark
Right?
territory here, too. And he's out for justice. Okay, that's all.
I think he may even be marked for death.
He's under siege by the police. They've been in a standoff for days. They're just waiting for him to give up. We meet him. He's giving a speech to all of these other sovereign citizens about how the founding fathers and the Constitution is like this country's fading so far away from all of that, and they should be allowed to do whatever the hell they want on their land, and the law doesn't apply to them. Again, stuff that's eerily similar to the garbage that spews out of people's mouths today, which just makes this all the more frustrating. And I don't actually know why he was under siege by the police. I didn't catch that. I have it in my notes. Did they ever say what
so,
he did
like,
wrong?
The only thing that we see him doing that is actually illegal before the attempted murder, which we're about to get to, that's like the next thing that happens in the movie.
Oh yeah, that we definitely
Yeah,
get to
they
that
end up
point,
doing
but-
a lot of illegal
They
stuff.
do a lot of
Yeah.
illegal stuff, but the only
But
thing that we
before
see
that-
him do illegal before, anything crazy goes down is that he saws the barrel off of a shotgun, which
Yeah.
is illegal. But that's
But he can do it because he's on his land and he can do whatever the hell he wants.
well,
on
he
his land.
videotaped it and then sent it to a judge.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
he
they
did.
so they do say, I only know this because I pulled up the movie again. In the news coverage, like while the police are lining up outside his place, it does say it's a local militia group. Floyd Chisholm, great name, a neo-Nazi with a history of radical confrontations with authorities who is currently wanted for multiple federal weapons violations.
Okay,
So
all right.
that-
So I just missed that.
They have like the newscast like statement,
Oh, okay.
but it's very much told not shown.
Okay, gotcha. So
Okay.
I just missed that. That's on me.
I missed it too.
He injects him, or he has one of his cronies inject him with some crazy
One of
virus
his
that
fellow
they got.
patriots.
Yeah, one
No.
of his fellow patriots.
He has like an eyedropper and he puts it directly on his tongue.
Oh, he does. And then they
Yeah.
inject the
The NOM 37 lethal toxicity.
yeah
NAM.
And then
They say NAM every single time, and it drives me nuts.
they inoculate all the patriots with the antidote or whatever you would call it, so that they don't get this horrible disease that he just gave himself. And then he gives himself up, gets taken to court, spits on the judge, whom he sent the tape of him sawing the barrel off his shotgun to. And then he goes to jail. Then the judge gets sick and dies. And then Steven Seagal comes in because he is the best damn immunologist in the country.
And I love this scene.
And he comes in and actually, you go ahead and tell it because I'm not sure which scene you're referring to.
So he comes into the hospital and he's looking at this man lying on the bed, almost like on the verge of death. Like his face is melting off and he has like pustules and he's sweating and there's like little bits of blood everywhere. And so Steven Seagal just comes over, no mask, no gloves, nothing, takes the oxygen mask off this guy, just starts like touching his face.
That's right.
And like examining and like getting his fingers in his mouth and like just...
Yep,
and he puts the oxygen mask back on, doesn't scrub, nothing.
Yeah.
And the guy's just like sitting in an open hospital bed in like a hallway.
No, it's okay because we saw him rub an ointment on another dude early in this movie, so you know he's an expert. You know he's a pro.
Oh yeah, so Steven Seagal he plays another Native American this time around, which we should stress.
I was actually
He's
confused
got
about this.
No Native American blood.
I was confused about this. Is he Native American or did he marry a Native American? Because
That's actually a really good point.
we don't actually see any of his blood relatives other than his daughter.
Doesn't seem like he actually thinks he's Native American in this, but he definitely seems to think he knows more about being Native American than the people that his friends and relatives who are actually Native Americans. Like he mansplains Native Americanism to Native Americans.
Well, no. So okay, let's get through this. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
So he calls, I guess, the CDC or equivalent of CDC. Doesn't matter. The government. They come in. They quarantine the whole town. And then the baddies find out that the serum they injected themselves with doesn't actually work. The virus is mutated, so they need to get like new stuff.
It is worth pointing out for the plot because, again, just speaking of the quality, the sheer quality of writing on display here, we've alluded to this already, but I can't remember if it's the CDC or whatever government organization needs to contain outbreaks in the world of this movie. The guy in charge of that calls him up and he's like, "Hey, we need a person to do containment. I can't tell you what's happening, but we're gonna need someone to do containment." And he says he won't do it, and very conveniently, this thing that was stolen that he's going to need containment for happens to then be used by these people, in his town. There is no actual reason that leads to that happening. Just that the guy knows that this thing has been stolen, the NAM-37. He knows it's been stolen. He calls Steven Seagal because he's the best person. And then, by sheer luck, the outbreak happens where Seagal has now retired as a small town, family doctor.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I was losing my mind at that because I feel like it needs to be pointed out.
Yeah, no, you're right. So the baddies find out that their serum doesn't actually work. The virus mutated, so they have to go get new serum. So then they get their guns and they go and on a murderous rampage through the town to try and get to the hospital for no reason. For absolutely no reason at all. So they get to the hospital so they can get the new serum that they actually find out is exactly the same as the stuff they have. So they're all dying. Everybody's dying. They don't know how to fix it. Oh god, jeez, this goes on.
It's very funny because then literally the rest of the movie is every single character wanting the same thing and people still being violent to each other over it the entire time.
Yep.
They still continue to indiscriminately murder and hold this hospital hostage, even though they're all trying to work towards a cure. Nobody even wants anything different at this point.
No.
Yep. It just gets rough. So then they find out. They take blood samples. The baddies are going through all the... they invade. There's military there because they had quarantined the whole town. The military guys, they wait and they hear firing out in the street, hear gunfire on the street, but they wait until people rush into the room to spin around with their guns held in hand, and then they're shot dead. They're not ready for it. Anyway, so the... what was it? Oh, they're looking through blood samples to see if anybody had a better reaction to the serum or whatever. They find out that Seagal's daughter, the one who reminds him so much of his dead wife when she does things wrong, she apparently she was immune. Yeah, she was able, she was infected, but then her body was able to fight it off. So they need to get her blood. So she runs away. Seagal in the weirdest action sequence that was the whole movie moves so slow, and then this action sequence moves so quick. It's really strange. And the weirdest action
they
sequence,
want to get
Seagal,
it over and done with.
Yeah, finds his daughter, and then they escape the hospital by jumping through a window. It's crazy fast. It's really weird. and then they drive home. Well, actually, no, they don't drive home. They get picked up by their like friend, coworker that works on their farm. I don't know, Frank, who, by the way, my favorite character in this entire movie.
Frank's great. I like
Frank was awesome.
My second favorite character, maybe.
Frank, then it just so conveniently is like waiting for them and gets them, picks them up in his Jeep, and they drive back to their house.
He was like waiting right outside the window that they happened to jump through.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Which I feel like it's very worth pointing out. When Seagal grabs his daughter, he like puts this blanket over her, and it's funny because like very clearly
so hard.
a person is jumping with like a mannequin covered in a blanket through the window, and then he takes the blanket off her immediately. Yeah. It's like they didn't have a child-sized mannequin that looks like her or something.
So they get back to their house. They're trying to load up. They need to go visit Grandpa. They don't explain it. We find out later. So they're trying to get loaded up to go visit Grandpa, and the baddies come to their house, and Frank freaking takes them all out.
Like a boss.
Mm-hmm.
Blows up their truck, and then he does this little dance in the middle of the road, which is also hysterical and would have been great, but one of the baddies was like semi-conscious and then shot him straight through the chest, and it was awful.
But again, that's why Frank is the best. Because he literally like outclasses the supposedly like CIA background, like trained, like, immunologist slash like kung fu, Aikido expert. Mm-hmm. Like he just completely takes out an entire right wing militia on his own, and then he's just doing a little jig in the middle of the street, and that's how he dies. It's like a Greek myth.
Because
that's his downfall.
Because he does the one thing that Seagal never does in any of these movies, and that's show and emotion.
I said no, can't have that.
No, you can't have that. You're overshadowing him, so you have to die. Yeah. I was really bummed about that. So Seagal takes off with his daughter. They go to visit Grandpa. Grandpa is Native American who has like herbal remedies to different illnesses and stuff. And they meet Anne, who is just there with Grandpa, and they don't explain who Anne is or why she's there.
Yes, they do. You have to really pay attention.
Okay, I completely missed it. Please tell me who Anne is. Because the daughter says, is Anne going to be? When they say we're going to go visit Grandpa, the daughter goes, is Anne going to be there? And Steven Seagal goes, maybe. And then they don't say anything else about it.
And it is Dr. Anne Whitecloud, who is my favorite character in the film.
Yeah. So Anne...
Are you like upset? Like you didn't want to agree with that? You're like, yeah, okay, Zach.
Well, so I was like, this was real sus to me because there seems to be, when they first meet, I'm like, oh, she's very attractive and significantly younger than Seagal, but also an adult woman. So this is going to be like the love interest, right? But then they start talking about who she is. And she's his sister-in-law or niece. Like it's...
Family somehow. Okay. I missed that. I didn't hear anybody explain. I just heard the daughter say, is Anne going to be there? And he says, maybe. And then she's there. And we're just supposed to know
because who she is. Grandpa is also her grandpa.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
The part that had me confused is how she's Dr. Anne Whitecloud. Dr. Whitecloud. But when they see her, when they go in person, he's just like, oh, you still working on that thesis? Or it's like, oh, you taking a break from school? And she's like, yeah, the thesis is real tough.
Doctor yet?
I don't know. But like she's credited as the doctor. He introduces her later on to other characters as a doctor. She appears to have her credentials to be I assume an MD, but is still in school working on the thesis. I'm not going to say I have a medical degree, but I don't think that's how it works. So I was confused by that, along with being a bit confused by her familiar relations, until I think I sussed it out in the same way you did, Aaron.
Yeah.
So they say, out of nowhere, all of a sudden we're revealed to Steven Seagal's CIA history, where he just knows there's some lab hidden in the hills.
A DARPA lab.
He has to get there. And Anne says, I'll come along. And he's like, sure. So they go find this lab with some soldiers who are also dying from this same illness. And he has trying to figure out a cure. And a whole bunch of them die because he doesn't figure it out. And they finally figure out that
it's worth pointing out, not just that he knows where the lab is, he used to work there. Like his
he used to work there.
He used to work there. He still has to make a fake ID to get in. But he did.
Yeah, but that's weird.
Too. Was it a fake ID?
Fake orders.
It was a fake ID. He printed it out. Funny. Like in his own
picture. He prints it out on just a regular inkjet printer, which is very funny. Like he doesn't even have like the kind of like the card that like a college student making fake IDs has, like that machine. But like Was it a fake, or did he just like make himself a new ID?
Well, so like, I think it was a fake
He
because
was...
if you're looking at the computer screen when he's making it, he has like the logos for a bunch of different government organizations.
He's just
like,
dragging and dropping the ones that he needs.
Yes. So he can make a NASA ID. He can make an FBI ID.
It's just absurd.
That's fair. But see, I like the part when he's like not wearing glasses throughout the whole movie. He puts the glasses on to do the computer stuff, takes them off to like do the webcam photo, and then puts them back on, but then doesn't wear them after that scene. Like, I don't know what this guy's prescription is, but his, like, I think legitimately they're just like his idea of a smart person is someone who like puts on and off glasses, but he didn't like want to commit to that for the whole movie, so he just did it in the scene.
That's someone who wears glasses. I'm offended.
Got to sell the ruse to get into your prior place of work. So they, a whole bunch of them die, and he's trying to figure out the stuff, and Anne starts making tea, and the last guy starts to get better, and it's not because of anything Seagal did, it's because of the tea, the herbal remedies that their grandfather taught them.
Made out of wildflowers.
Yeah, made out of wildflowers. So it's the flowers. So he like talks to the military and says, it's the flowers. We got to get everybody the flowers, whatever. So the military starts gathering up flowers. He and his daughter go back to town. But when they get back to their house, they're ambushed, captured by the dudes. So they get brought back to Floyd, who this whole time, Floyd is like is begging people to help him. You know, you got to help me fix this. You got to help me feel better. And at one point, Floyd says to one of his cronies, I need another shot. And it's the shot that doesn't do anything. But he says, I need another shot because I can't do this if I'm 6 feet under in a box. So, like, I need another shot. But when he says he can't do this, he's done literally nothing this entire movie except inspire all of these idiots. Because
he even has one of his like white nationalist neo-Nazi like friends that like seems to have medical knowledge and
experience. Yeah, like he's like an actual scientist or something.
Like, is like running experiments.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
he's done literally nothing the entire time. Like he wasn't even the one doing any of the shooting. He's done literally nothing. But I can't do this without another shot. Ugh. Anyway, they get brought back to him. Seagal and Floyd have a one-on-one. Seagal kills Floyd in like the best way possible. Outstanding. Only piece of this movie where I was like, oh yeah. They take out all the other cronies.
Well, are you just going to leave the people hanging, Hans? You said this is my best part of the movie, and then you gave no other details.
See, that's the problem, though. It's the best part of the movie, and yet it's not actually that interesting.
He just like breaks the bulb off a wine glass and stabs him with it.
Yeah, they're having wine, and Seagal breaks the head off or the cup part of the wine glass out, and then stabs him with the stem of the wine glass. But it's like through his skull.
Yeah, it's really weird because he breaks the stem. You assume he's going to stab him in the neck, but he does like the temple. It's very
yeah.
Also, he picks up a full glass of wine, and then it's empty in time for him to break it and stab again.
Yeah.
Fun facts.
And they specifically say that it's Merlot, and that bothered me. But anyway,
that's what bothered you.
So,
because then I just started thinking about Bottle Shock. I'm like, I should watch a different movie now.
So he tells the government it's the flowers. They start collecting flowers, and then they just airdrop flowers from the sky and blare over speakers saying like, the flowers will heal you. Go home and bake and make them into a tea and drink it, and you'll all be saved. And I don't know, it's not even convoluted. It's just a lot of different pieces to tell the story, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. So like, okay, here's a question. We are now 10 movies in, and before we get into like what we really thought of this movie specifically, how's everyone doing?
Oh, it's rough, man. Oh, it's so rough.
You know, when you have an idea, hypothetically, like along the lines of like, hey, what if we like watch every Steven Seagal, like literally spend a year of our lives, spend a 28th of my life watching Seagal movies, and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound fun, but that's kind of a funny idea. And then inevitably you get to a point in this idea, like of actually doing the thing, and you're like, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
We're very firmly in that territory. At some point, I know it's like, you know, a wave. At some point that crests, and we're like, oh, actually it's fun again. I bought in. It's going to be rough getting to that point.
No, I was, yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel worse for Aaron, because I know Zach and I have had the opportunity to go see many interesting and actually good films outside of this, and it sounds like you've watched 10 movies this year, and they've all been Seagal.
Yes. Yeah, no, like I said before, the one good thing from this is it's just making me watch more movies, because I'm watching more things to balance it out. So I've already watched like more movies this year than I have last year, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I actually
watched Cocaine Bear this weekend. It was I might as well just read my letterbox review because it's pretty short. For a movie called Cocaine Bear, I expected more of a bear doing cocaine. There really wasn't a whole lot of it in there.
Oh, well, that's disappointing. But I was watching.
Thank you. This has
Patriot.
been Taking You to the Bank, the Elizabeth Banks Fancast, where we talk about movies directed by Elizabeth Banks. Next week, make sure you join us for Pitch Perfect 2. All right, that's a wrap, everyone.
I wish. But no, as I was watching The Patriot, I was just sitting in my chair, and I got maybe like 2/3 of the way through, and I just was so tired.
Yeah.
And I just thought, can I fake it on the podcast?
Do I have to?
Like,
Okay. I do need to be fully honest with you. I have not done it. I have very much considered just like reading a Wikipedia synopsis and trying to like fake my way through one of these episodes because I did not feel like watching the movie, especially when it is like day of and I know I need to watch this on my lunch break today. Like, I have been so tempted. I've kept myself honest so far, but I'm a weak man and I
stay
don't
strong.
know if...
Stay strong.
So
Stay
that's
strong.
like...
We got to pull the this past year's Till Death Do Us Blart. They had somebody
That's
outside of the
right.
podcast pick one of them at random
That's right.
to not watch that movie and instead watch Here Comes the Boom. we need to get somebody in our crew to pick one of us to not watch the movie and try to fake it.
Oh,
I
boy.
think, yeah, or I think even like we each get one. I think at some point like we need like it's an Among Us situation and you don't know like so we each
it's
try
like a
it
game.
for one movie and so you're trying to figure out what each person's want. So like at any point you can be like, actually, you know what, I think this is. So it's like each person gets one and then also each of us gets like 3 guesses per person or something. I don't know the exact game balance. If we can, figure it out more.
Interesting.
But maybe
I
like and
that.
then once I've used all my guesses, I can't guess you anymore. I can't accuse you.
See, that might actually be very helpful. It might be like a good safety because it's rough right now. It's so rough.
I was going to say, though, the one thing I think that needs to be said is just I would feel very silly. I mean, I would feel silly telling a person I've watched every Steven Seagal movie. I would somehow feel more silly telling someone I've watched all but one Steven Seagal movie. So I think even if we do this, I would then need to like
I'd have
get
to watch it
caught
later
up.
at
Like
some
I would
point.
still need to watch
Yeah.
at some point because I can't just say, "Oh, I watched everything except I didn't watch, A Good Man." Like,
No, I'm just like right now it's so rough because these are not like this is as his career is going downhill from his peak, which was not really that high of a peak anyway.
No.
And we're not to the stuff that is like so bad that it's good. We're not there yet. We're just to the stuff that's just starting to go direct to video and they're just plain bad.
It was.
I will say
this
oh,
one
go
was
ahead.
rough for me.
See, I will say I was
Same.
feeling worse right after Glimmerman and Fire Down Below. Those ones had me a bit worse. I think I don't
I
know.
did fine.
Patriot, I'm slightly warmer on.
This was actually
Still not great, but
apparently. So I'm discovering something about the way that I consume movies and stuff. Writing really matters to me a lot. Apparently,
yeah.
That,
That's fair. That's
apparently, I've discovered about myself watching this movie that's probably like the most important thing to me in a film is the writing.
Okay.
Because I mean, like you alluded to as we started this conversation, like a lot of the other stuff is fine. Like I would say the editing is really jank, but like cinematography is fine. Like
Again, this is a recurring theme, but
Yeah.
I did from the limited research that we do, like scrolling through IMDb and Wikipedia before each of these recordings. Again, this suffers the same weird post like indecisiveness, editing and re-editing. I guess there were at one point more action scenes.
Oh,
and they
you can
edited
feel
those
it.
write-outs. You
I
can
actually
definitely feel
thought
it.
there are like a surprisingly few number of action scenes in this movie.
Okay, so that's we can like kind of pivot, we can transition to that. I actually wouldn't be surprised. I think that might be the reason this was his first direct-to-video.
Yeah. It's
Because
not a
he's
very
the
action-heavy
star,
movie.
and there weren't many action scenes.
Because I think like there are some movies where they put all the good stuff in the trailer. But I think if you made a trailer for this movie and included all of the action scenes, every minute of Seagal doing like violence to another person, it would be like a 27-second long trailer.
Yeah.
So I like legitimately think they're like, we just don't like. They made it and then they're like, we can't even market this to like even like the Seagal crowd. Well,
There's one
you know,
explosion in
however
this
much of
movie
that
and Seagal
exists.
doesn't cause it.
And like you said, when he finally does an action scene, it's over so quick.
Yeah.
It's like they're like trying to get it out of the way. So I
Yeah.
just don't think they knew how to market this, and that's why it was direct to video.
That's quite possible.
That very well could be. It's a good thought.
That's my conspiracy theory.
Is this also the first Seagal movie based on a book? Like, this is an adaptation of a book.
It is?
Yeah.
This is, well, yeah, because I thought that was funny that it's called The Patriot and it's based on a novel called The Last Canadian.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there are 3
Weirdly
writers
enough.
credited on this movie. One of them is the author of the book on which this movie is based.
Okay, and also,
Interesting.
so this is another funny thing to get into. From what again, this is just stuff that I've read online. I don't have personal knowledge on this. It appears as though potentially the other writers might be pseudonyms. Those might not actually be real people.
Well, that makes sense because both of them only have 1 writing credit, and it's this.
It appears as though what I'm seeing is that David Ayer, who I said earlier, David Ayer, who worked on the Suicide Squad, and he actually has some movies I recognize. I'd have to look at this real quick. But Fury, End of Watch, Training Day, and the first Fast and the Furious. Interesting.
Oh, okay.
But did not
Not my favorite
attach
movies,
his
but like competent.
actual name to this. And then Paul Mones, who worked on Cagney and Lacey. Oh, interesting. Nothing as big as David Ayer, but mostly seems to write for TV.
Okay.
But again, did not want his name attached to this. But it doesn't appear as though they wrote the movie together. It seems like they both produced drafts of the screenplay separately, and like they were asynchronous writers.
Okay.
And then neither one wanted their name attached to it.
Yeah, because like
So it's a very weird writing situation.
yeah, I mean, I did a really quick look into the writers. One of them is the author of the book, and the other 2 only have 1 writing credit.
Oh, it
Because
actually
they're fake.
it actually looks like early promotional material. Credited David Ayer as one of the screenwriters. So at some point, like they started promoting the movie with Ayer, and at some point between that and release, he did not want his name on it.
No.
I wonder why.
I cannot imagine. My problem with this movie was it was just so thoroughly boring. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. Like this is probably the movie about which I have the fewest notes.
Interesting. So
His
what
accent sucked.
Okay, his accent sucks, but in a different way than usual.
Yeah?
So something that we haven't really touched on. This is kind of a Western.
Yeah, like there's horse riding, and the opening scene, he wrangles a sick cow.
And he's definitely going for kind of his typical, the voice like this, mixed with cowboy, mixed with a little Native American.
Yeah, he calls everybody girl.
Don't remind me. So it's a new accent. He definitely seems to think... I don't think the movie is actually canonically stating he's Native American, but it does seem like like I said, he is more Native American than real Native Americans.
Because of course he is.
Because of course he is.
Because whatever he is, he's the best at it. Even stuff that he's not.
I think my only other note that I had was my quote, if we want to do that.
Or Aaron, do you have any other notes?
Yeah. It's mostly from the end of the movie. So I had to pause the movie and write this down because I want to write down my thought process. When he goes down into the DARPA lab and he starts doing science, and I says, "I have a
Is
note.
it actually
We're
a
doing
DARPA lab, or is that just what you're calling it?
No, he makes a DARPA ID to get into that lab.
Okay, I didn't pay that much attention to that. Sorry.
I don't blame you.
That's going to be a common theme, I think, is one of us will catch all of the between the 3 of us, we'll have all the details because we'll catch different things.
But I wrote down, we're doing science, and it's really science because of all the beakers and test tubes. And then I had this thought. I wrote down what I thought. Seagal only beat up 3 people in this, but at least he got to get preachy about Western medicine, and then do a bunch of Western medicine. Like at the beginning of the movie, he was talking to people about how Western medicine sucks, and how the white man, doesn't respect the land because the land can provide everything you need to heal you. And then the minute that a real disease comes in, he drops that immediately and starts getting out the beakers and test tubes, and he's boiling things and decanting chemicals and stuff in a government laboratory. And so I said he only beat up 3 people in this, but at least he got to get preachy about Western medicine and then do a bunch of Western medicine. At least they're not curing this with magical Indian flowers or something. And then they immediately cure it with magical Indian flowers.
The Bayans. Oh, they got you.
I had to pause the movie because I thought there's no way.
But
There's
the
no
thing
way.
is, again, it's the expectations of this movie. In any other movie, when the main character, who's this doctor, the best in the field at the beginning, is no, you can't use Western medicine. You have to, use the natural materials of the world. it would not be as surprising. Like, you would expect he's gonna he'll try Western medicine, and then eventually he'll realize, oh no, I need to use this other thing. Like, that's not even that weird for a movie. But, like, you're just so used to Seagal spouting off about random, like...
I thought it was just like
seems to think he knows the most about, that there's no assumption that it's going to factor in later in the movie, because there's, like, 20 other things he said that don't matter.
Yeah.
It's like the shotgun spread, and then, like, one of those bullets one pellet actually happens to be relevant.
Like, because, like, it felt like a throwaway line from the very beginning of the movie, because that wasn't the theme throughout the film or anything. Like, that came up at the very beginning and at the very end, and that's it.
And even came up at the very beginning is just, he's a doctor and he says, like, you know, Western medicine doesn't always work, but he's still, like...
He's still prescribed. He still sent that lady to the hospital, and... He's
even using, on the guy he's saying it to, he uses, like, a medical cream on him. Like, he's not using, like, a special fancy thing that he makes and, like, you know, himself. He just uses, like, anti-rash
and also,
on the guy.
So, Grandpa is, like, taking care of the little girl, and they go out to his garden where he grows, like, medicinal flowers and stuff. And they look at two flowers. There's the red flower, which they call red medicine, which ends up being like the cure for this random, you know, government-created, laboratory-grown disease. And the other one, he says, what is this one called? And she's like, oh, it's the purple whatever. And he says, what is it for? And she says, that's a secret. And they like wink and laugh and then go back inside. And then that's never mentioned.
I mean,
definitely thought it was going to be the purple flower.
Probably hit by the editing curse.
I honestly didn't even catch that.
Because apparently writing is important to me, because I'm like waiting for the payoff on these things. And there are certain things that, like, when he starts to get preachy about how, you know, the modern world is bad or we're ruining the planet, I'm just like, oh, okay, he just does this every now and again, and I just like skipped it. So
like, sometimes he literally just attaches a press conference to the end of his movie so he can do it for like 7 minutes.
It was 11.
Oh, sorry. I underestimated.
You underestimated
11,
his
edited down to 4.
Get really preachy at the audience. Zach was just splitting the difference.
Exactly. What I wanted to talk about. Well, because I think we learned that it was originally going to be even longer. Like, that was even after they trimmed it down.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is the weirdly high production value everywhere else other than the writing.
Yeah.
For a direct-to-video thing. So, ordinarily, we have a lot of, like, when we talk about the people on camera, like, oh, this actress, like, appears here and then ends up, like, actually doing, like, great, amazing things after this movie. There isn't nearly as much of that in this time. Like, there aren't any other really recognizable faces that you're going to see. Not that the people have done nothing, but... No.
I was hunting. And
Silas Weir Mitchell.
Okay. I'm not saying there's none. I'm saying it's less than usual.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, you do have Silas Weir Mitchell. You probably know him for My Name is Earl. I mean, at least that's how I know him. I don't know. Is that actually the way most people know him?
I'm looking at his IMDb page. He says it says he's known for Rat Race, The Whole 10 Yards, Flags of Our Fathers, and he was in a bunch of episodes of Prison Break.
This guy, actually,
a bunch of stuff I never watched. Oh, he was in 123 episodes of Grimm.
This guy, so he's one of those guys. He appears in like 1 to like 6 episodes of like every single television show you've seen.
Yeah,
which we've seen before on this very podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll also say LQ Jones actually seems to be the opposite. He was kind of much more prominent before this movie. This is like later in his career, but he was in a lot of Westerns. Like, he was a Western actor. And so it's kind of similar. Like, they just had a bunch of country stars for the other one. It seems like here it has got like Western people for this movie. That's kind of Western, but not really.
Oh, the guy who played Floyd has been in some stuff.
Yeah, LQ Jones was Frank. So no, I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all, but it is like, we've had multiple examples of this person like deserves and did better. This person deserves and did better. This time, the emphasis is behind the camera.
Yeah.
Are you with me? Are you with me on this?
I think I'm with you.
Have you done any of this research yet, or am I?
I have not. Because I just was so upset with the writing.
This is the only Steven Seagal film to be directed by an Academy Award winner.
Oh.
You have an Oscar, and here's the thing: not even just like, oh, he did this early career, and then like, this is post. This is the director Dean Semler had an Oscar in hand while he was on set directing this straight-to-video Steven Seagal movie.
Oh, he made Road Warrior, Dances with Wolves,
a lot of great stuff. That's what got him the Oscar. He's primarily a cinematographer. He won his Oscar for cinematography. He worked on Mad Max 2 and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome as cinematographer. Generally, he's the cinematographer. He's the DP on like movies.
Oh, wait.
This was... Yes?
we've come back to a movie that sits at the nexus of a lot of these people involved with Steven Seagal, the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes,
he was the director of photography for the Super Mario Bros.
The Nexus.
Yes, he was on the Super Mario Brothers movie, which we have discussed in like at least like 3 or 4 other episodes. Anyway.
Anywho.
Last Action Hero, Three Musketeers, Waterworld. Like, he's done... Oh, Triple X. Bruce Almighty. He's been the cinematographer on a lot of decent to good movies and a lot of ones that you've seen. Oh my god, Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. He was... I did not know that. I did not see that earlier. So, oh boy, to win your award for Dances with Wolves and then to fall down to Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. Anyway, directed
he
by
did
Academy
Click
Award.
and Apocalypto in the same year.
Dean Semler is incredibly interesting, man. We get it. Dean Semler, you are by far the most interesting person we've talked about thus far. I believe this is his only... The Patriot is his only time directing. It seems like almost always he's, cinematographer. The reason I ended up looking into this, the reason I discovered this is because while I was watching, there's one in particular, I will do the classic Hans thing. I will put the screenshot in the chat. There's a scene when they're locking up lead Nazi Second Amendment dude, and they're putting him in the jail cell. And there's this one shot in particular that just stuck out, where he's in his orange jumpsuit and in this orange light, and just outside of the cell is just bathed in this blue light, and he's looking at the guard, locking him up. And it's not the most amazing shot ever put to film, but while I'm watching, I'm like, why does that look as good as it does? Why does that stick out as looking good? And it's
the
not
lighting is actually very good.
I'm looking at the cinematographer here. Yeah, makes sense.
So that's why I was like, I need to look into this. So it very much I think what's happening is you have a person who's typically a cinematographer who's directing, but he has a cinematographer's eye. He knows how to work with his DP on this movie. They get some really good looking shots. And they're actually pretty well suited. For a Western, they get some really cool landscape shots of, I don't actually know if it was filmed in Montana, but of that environment. And he's working on this with the cinematographer is Stephen Winden. Mostly what he does now is he works with Justin Lin on the Fast and the Furious movies.
Yeah.
So this guy, and now this is one where this would be, he would go on to do better things. Where he was on The Patriot. It wasn't his first movie, but it's relatively early in his
seems
career.
to be an inflection point.
Yeah, because then pretty soon after, well, not pretty soon after that, this was in 98. It was the first one he did was Tokyo Drift in 2006.
But he did other stuff that was pretty good. He worked with Jackie Chan on Tuxedo. He did things.
Yeah. But he worked on the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, and then he does Fast 5. He does Fast and Furious 6. He does Furious 7. He just is now the cinematographer for the entire Fast and the Furious series from that point on. They're not my favorite movies. I don't love the Fast and the Furious movies, but I imagine it takes a very skilled cinematographer to make action movies of that caliber. So this is one where I just all of a sudden I'm fixated on that. We talked about, literally the writers do not want their name attached to it, but you actually have legitimately a person who won an Oscar for cinematography directing with then a person who would go on to be one of the most successful cinematographers in the industry, and it shows. It's very strange. This might be one of the best shot direct to video movies out there.
And I'm looking a little bit more into the background people, the editor for this film, the head editor for this film, as directing editor hasn't worked on a ton of stuff that I think people would know. He actually worked on a few different Steven Seagal films, but as assistant editor, he worked on Die Hard, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Team America: World Police, Bourne Ultimatum, and Iron Man. So he's had his hands in, since this movie, he's had his hands in a whole bunch of very successful projects. He's been trusted, not totally. Mm-hmm. This is Derek Bretchen, but he's worked on some really high profile stuff. He wasn't in charge of them, but he has worked on some high profile stuff. He knows what he's doing, is what I'm saying.
Right. It makes sense because it seems they originally wanted this to be a wider theatrical release before it went direct to video. So they got talent on board that you normally see in a theatrical release for then this direct-to-video thing. And so multiple times I'm watching, again, it's just a terribly written script. It's maybe the worst writing we've seen in this series so far. No, the series.
Well, and the art director, to keep harping on this, he was the art director for, so this is Tim Eckel. He did this and then went immediately, a couple of years later, to do CSI. And he's been in background for the Super Mario Brothers movie, which keeps coming up. And The Crow, and some like some movies that do have like a very unique style to them. So like a lot of the people involved in the background here have been at least involved in very stylish movies.
It's worth pointing out because we're going to be at this point soon. I mean, this episode probably won't even release till afterwards, but we do mean the live-action Super Mario Brothers movie with Dennis Hopper. We do not mean the Illumination one that at the time of recording will be coming out very soon. At the time of listening, have come out. We are talking about the classic 1980s live-action Super Mario Brothers movie.
I think you could convince someone that it was a good movie that they didn't watch if you just showed them some screenshots and like a couple non-speaking scenes. Like I think there's this shot late, like at the very end of the movie, where like the military is directed to start picking flowers. And so you have these guys,
that's what I was going to talk about next.
Like in these hazmat suits, just lumbering over this hill, and then they have to lean down and pick up these flowers, and it's kind of beautiful. And like I was thinking of like a Miyazaki film. Like I was watching this, and I'm like, the colors, the lighting, there's a little bit of fog. Like it feels like a Miyazaki movie.
I'm so excited that you like stole my thunder and brought this up first, because that was going to be like the two things that I remember. Like when you remember the writing of this movie, you just remember the bad things. Like when you know, I don't remember like that. The two things I remember most from this movie are that shot of the guy getting locked up, where like the first initial "this is weirdly good" happened, and then towards the end of the movie, they discover the cure. He calls the military, and they're like, "Yeah, what is it?" And he's like, "It's wildflowers." And they're like, "Wildflowers?" And just hard cut to like wildflowers on a hill, and you see these dudes in the military gear like walking, like they kind of come into frame over the hill and they start picking the flowers. And that, like you said, the shot itself and just the juxtaposition of that, like wildflowers, and then immediately cutting to dudes in like full body armor, gas masks, like picking flowers. I was like, this is like high art.
This is art.
This moment here in a terrible film, this is legitimately capital A so art bad. TM.
Yeah, like in a like different movie,
italicized.
In a different movie, it still would have been a great scene. Like like I said, when I saw that scene, that 1 30-second shot, I was thinking like, oh, this could work in a Miyazaki film if it were animated. Like this could have been a shot from like Close Encounters. Like it was really, really done. Like the artistry was just poured into that one shot because there was no dialogue. It was just music, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember the music very much. I do remember thinking a couple times, oh, that was a nice little musical sting there, but I don't remember like the soundtrack or anything. Everything came together in this one moment. There's this shining example of filmmaking in the midst of this sea of just...
No, I will say overall I'm not going to remember it as a good movie, but I'm weirdly going to remember the good... Like there's more good parts. Like there are actually 2 parts that legitimately I'm just like, oh, this is... Wow. And that's 2 more than you have in like any of these other movies starring Steven Seagal. So that's worth something.
I don't think it's worth sitting through the whole movie to see. No. Like just watch those scenes.
The funny part is both of those scenes don't have Steven Seagal in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. No, and I think when you're saying like you could like kind of convince a person this is a good movie with some like out of context like screenshots and scenes, those ones would not have Seagal in them.
No.
Those would be Seagal free moments that you're showing.
No, any scene where you have Seagal just like squinting at the camera, whispering about how he's the best in the world at whatever is happening in that moment. It's torture.
Torture?
No, I'm like rewatching it now. This is actually like legitimately like this is legitimately great. The scene of them coming over the hill and picking the flowers, like I wish it wasn't.
What's the timestamp on that? So if we tell someone to watch it, we can just go to exactly this timestamp and then skip the rest of the movie.
So if you're gonna watch the movie, you can legitimately just skip ahead to 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 3 seconds. That's where it starts off with the Colonel. I have a phone call for you. That's not the accent he has. I don't know why I gave him that accent. But it's great. The movie's bad. 2 out of 5 stars for me is what I gave it. These movies are always absurd in a weird way. This is absurd in like a weirdly pleasant way. Like when the military helicopters are going through, just like raining down the flower petals, and they like make a tea out of it. I'm also like weirdly. I'm not gonna say it's good, but I'm weirdly into it. Like it is just for such a dumb movie to end it in such a like that's the best dumb way.
How else would it end? You know,
right? You're just like of course.
Sure,
Yeah.
why not?
Sure. So we don't actually have to like dwell on the movie itself. Like just, I don't know. I was weirdly positive at it. I wanted at the end. Overall, it's still not a great movie. I don't think I struggled as much as Hans. It was very slow.
Oh my gosh.
It was very slow.
So slow.
Only other thing that I can say about people in the movie, the actress that played Anne, Whitney Yellowrobe, or Whitney Yellowrobe Yates, I guess later on, this is her only acting credit.
She was actually pretty good.
She did a great job.
She was actually very good. And even with Seagal being on screen at the same time as her.
Oh,
she was very good. And it would be such a shame if the reason that she like didn't continue on with acting is because this movie was such a flop.
I mean, yeah. I will say two kind of semi-related production fun little details. This was apparently just shot, a lot of this movie was shot on Steven Seagal's backyard ranch. I guess he has a ranch, and that's where this movie was shot. The other one is when at the beginning when Seagal's like working in doing his small town, I'm just a small town doctor stuff. His assistant is played by one of his real life daughters, Ayako Fujitani. This is the only This is the only movie she ever appears in alongside Seagal. But his like, doctor, your next patient, like she has like one line or something. That's his real life daughter. I'm not certain. I think that's one of his daughters that he abandoned at some point. I want to say.
Yeah, it was. This is his first wife.
Yeah, that he just ditched to move to Hollywood.
Oh, that's so awful.
Yeah. And so this is the one movie that she would star in with Seagal, and boy, I cannot blame her. I can't even say star in, appear in for like one scene.
Oh, that's so awful.
But yeah, do we want to? What are our quotes from the movie? I can't even. I'm gonna have to go with maybe just like The Cure's Drive from Flowers. Flowers, I like that one. The other one that sticks out in my head is very terrible. It's very bad. It's what you mentioned earlier, Hans. It's the everything bad you get from your tragically dead mom and everything good you get from me. That's the quote I remember the most. You're unexplained, by the way. They don't explain how she died or anything else about her other than all the bad stuff the daughter gets from him. He also says something like, hey, if you see any boys, no dating till you're 40. Ew, gross. Yeah. Those are the two Seagal quotes I remember the most.
I honestly can't think of any quotes because like the only dialogue that I remember is from the very beginning when Floyd is like quizzing the other sovereign citizens on like quotes from the founding fathers.
That bit was pretty good though. I got to admit that was pretty funny.
It gave me too much hope for the rest of the movie.
That's a good way to put it.
Because I liked the idea in the writing that he wasn't like actually giving like it sounded like he was being like giving this big rousing speech to all of the other pseudo military guys, but really they were just like killing time, like quizzing each other.
My quote is when they're giving the shots to all of the people lined up at the hospital before the bad guys break in and start shooting everybody. The old woman, I don't remember her name, but she had been in a couple scenes prior. And she sits down, and one of the doctors puts a needle in her arm to give her a shot. Just, whatever. Yeah. And she goes, "Watch it, son. I ain't no dartboard."
Okay, I do like the old lady, and I do like that one.
And that was so good. That made me cackle quite a bit. It's like, "Watch it, son. Good, I ain't no dartboard."
And there were a few. You have a couple good, like, simple Western country folks with their folksy wisdom type quotes like that.
It was very good.
But yeah,
was a very short ray of sunshine in an otherwise dreary, rainy, nasty afternoon.
Yeah.
Fair. Oh, what's our 2 out of 5 for me? That's my rating.
I don't even know.
1.
I think you do know, Hans. I think it's 1 or lower.
It's probably a 1. I think I've been putting all of them at 1s. They're all really? So.
Come on.
They're all so bad. I think one of them. I think I put it at half. The rest were 1. So like I needed to go down. I'd have to check. I don't remember. Hang on.
Because it's gonna get worse. Like honestly, this is again when we talk about adjusting our expectations for a Seagal movie. all of my rating.
No, I didn't. I put it at 1. They're 1.5 is my lowest so far. So I was going with 2. 2s and then 1.5 was the lowest, so that I had room to go down.
That's the thing. All of my movies thus far are kind of unintentionally buoyed, like perhaps a rating boost, because I know they're going to get worse, and I don't want to just have every Seagal movie at a 0.5 star. Like, I'm trying to be a little more discerning than that.
Yeah.
I did not give myself that room to wiggle.
Okay, but Aaron, you hit the first movie, and you hit the first movie hard, and then everything else has been... you went from 3 stars, and then everything's been like 1 star since then.
Yep.
We can't trust... You have the chaotic, stupid rating system for the Seagal movies. We can't listen to that.
Chaotic.
I'm all prepared for next week.
What you should do, Aaron, you should take that whatever extra time, whenever you would normally watch that Seagal movie, and watch something good.
We are 10 in. I think every 10 I can, at least every 10, I can give myself a palate cleanser.
Treat yourself to something decent.
Yeah.
Okay, I do. Actually, Aaron, I have a recommendation I want to give you. And I think Mons will agree. Academy Award snubbed Babylon.
Okay.
Oh,
Directed by Damien Chazelle.
Now that's a bit of a time commitment. I don't know.
Yeah,
what your schedule is like.
Almost 3 hours long.
Oh my gosh!
It was so good. Like, it's such a phenomenal movie, and it absolutely got snubbed. Even when it first came out, it was overshadowed so much by Avatar, which is so frustrating to me because Avatar sucked so hard, and Babylon was so good, and everybody gave it like it was. It's good, but it's weird. So because it's weird, everybody hated it.
I can do good but weird. That's fine.
It's so good.
I've been doing bad and weird
movie. And
for
the music,
10 movies.
Aaron, you will appreciate the music so much.
Just God tier.
Okay, cool.
This is very good.
I will warn you, especially like the opening scene. Don't watch like with be discerning in who else is in the room while you watch. There are perhaps salacious acts depicted on screen.
Oh, well, if we're talking about Seagal movies, the next one, Exit Wounds. I mean, I don't want to talk about it too much, but also kind of be careful with who's in the room when you watch that one. Yeah.
But yeah, you should if you want to watch a good movie. And I'm like we're saying, it's literally 189 minutes long. Like, it's a doozy,
but it's worth it.
It's worth it.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Wait, join us next. I don't. Did we?
No, we're done. That's it. It's over.
Okay. That's the end.
That means one of us has to die. Don't mention it, brother.